Soldiers of World War III. I'm talking to everyone in a NATO country between the ages of 18 and 26 years old. Listen closely. Share this with everyone because this isn't hypothetical anymore. This is where we are headed. Right now, Russia has officially abandoned all peace talks and declared the total destruction of Ukraine as its goal. NATO is mobilizing, the US is deploying assets in Europe, marking the most comprehensive defense posture since the Cold War. And tensions, they're stretching thinner by the hour. You think you'll have a choice? Think again. The moment Article 5 is triggered, everything changes. There will be a draft, and this time, they're not going to ask. And here's the real truth as to why. America isn't ready. Europe isn't ready. If this escalates, survival won't just mean avoiding the front lines. It'll mean enduring chaos here at home. Economic collapse, civil unrest, supply chain failure. Because when the system breaks, and it will, war becomes local. And as a father, I will say this plainly. I will not let my sons die in a war built by the mistakes of men in suits. Not for NATO, not for global posturing, not for lies wrapped in flags. So you better start thinking now. Because if this continues, the question isn't if war is coming. It's how soon. Who will be the soldiers of World War III? I'm talking to everyone in a NATO country between the ages of 18 and 26 years old. Listen closely. Share this with everyone because this isn't hypothetical anymore. This is where we are headed. Right now, Russia has officially abandoned all peace talks and declared the total destruction of Ukraine as its goal. NATO is mobilizing, the US is deploying assets in Europe, marking the most comprehensive defense posture since the Cold War. And tensions, they're stretching thinner by the hour. You think you'll have a choice? Think again. The moment Article 5 is triggered, everything changes. There will be a draft, and this time, they're not going to ask. And here's the real truth as to why. America isn't ready. Europe isn't ready. If this escalates, survival won't just mean avoiding the front lines. It'll mean enduring chaos here at home. Economic collapse, civil unrest, supply chain failure. Because when the system breaks, and it will, war becomes local. And as a father, I will say this plainly. I will not let my sons die in a war built by the mistakes of men in suits. Not for NATO, not for global posturing, not for lies wrapped in flags. So you better start thinking now. Because if this continues, the question isn't if war is coming. It's how soon.
This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, and verse 33. The virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The woman shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. Shalom, shalom. I want to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Kakadash. My name is Brother Napak from the Camp Prophets in Babylon, down here in Tampa Bay, Florida. And I want to give double honors to elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, peace and blessings to our hopeful elect and the ones listening in. And I want to get into a quick lesson. As you've seen on the video I just put up. A draft is coming. All right. That's Bible prophecy. All right. The whole, World War III, nuclear missile destruction, the draft. All these things are prophecies from the scriptures, man. And that's how we've been knowing that from the start, ultimately starting from the elders of the GMS camp, elders and apostles and on down, have been prophesying this, So now you're starting to see we're getting closer and closer to these times, all right? And these prophecies are starting to be fulfilled, And ultimately, they're going to come down, with that, whole thing of, what he say, 18 to 26, so mostly the young men, all right? They're going to come down to the young men, to draft them into the wars, all right? And the scripture says it. I just got it out. I'm going to bring it right back. This is 2nd Ezra 16 and verse 33. It says, the virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The virgins, they're going to mourn because they have no bridegroom. They have no husband, all right? They have no one to, to take their virginity, all right? It says the Women shall mourn having no husbands, because their husbands are going to be gone. Their husbands are going to die out. All right. It says their daughters shall mourn having no helpers. All right. So their daughters are going to mourn having no helpers, having no, it's going to be a society where, most of the men here, all right, will either be, dead or drafted into the war, getting ready for their death. All right. Because that's ultimately what's to come here to Babylon, and we're preparing for that now. All right. The man of the Lord, spiritually preparing, because ultimately, definitely gonna turn down that whole drafting thing, man. That's how a lot of brothers are gonna be put in prisons. All right, put in those camps. All right, because we ain't for to get drafted into no war, man. Ultimately, the Lord's gonna deliver us from that. But the rest of you niggas, y'all gonna have to, y'all gonna have to face that. It says, "In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed." All right, so a lot of those young men, all right, are gonna be drafted into the war. All right, and they're gonna be destroyed there. No matter if you wanted to go or not, it's either you go or you get sent into prison. All right, or they may have it where they're gonna kill your ass if you don't go. All right, but the Lord's going to preserve His men and sustain His men. Because there's a lot of brothers in this truth that are young as well. All right, there's a lot of brothers that are young, and I believe honestly, speaking as a man, I believe that whole age thing is gonna go up. It ain't just gonna be 18 through 26, but that's all going. We're gonna see that all in the coming times. But yeah, man, it's gonna be. They're gonna higher that age limit, so they can put more people into that war, draft more people. Just like how they now they can draft women into war. All right, now they got where they could draft women into war. Before it wasn't like that, but earlier last year they had an article come out about how they're able to draft women now. You women want equal rights, so now you get equal fights as well. All right. It says, and their husbands shall perish of famine. So even, the husbands that don't go to war because they probably, above that age limit, they don't have to go, or they're older, or they just never went. All right. Because they probably denied or didn't want to get drafted. They're going to die. They're going to perish of that famine. All right. Perish of a lack of food. All right. So a lot of these men are going to die. And the women aren't going to have anyone to call upon or seek for help. So that's why, you have that Isaiah 4:1, because a lot of those women are going to go seeking out for the men of the Lord, because that's the only man that they're going to see that the Lord is preserving and sustaining, all right, and ultimately, protecting. And they're going to want that protection, but not a lot of those women are going to be able to get that protection, okay? But, yeah, man, and the rest of the men are going to be fighting in the war for dudes, like he said, that made mistakes in suits. All right? Fighting for these dudes' mistakes, that were made in those suits, man. You got, Trump, all right? He ain't backing down, and neither is Putin. All right, so ultimately the Lord is going to, continue these things, a lot farther on. And Jake gonna be suffering, bro. Best believe they're coming for Drake to draft Jake before they come for their own people. All right, so this is, prophecy, bro. We prophesy. This is what we go out and prophesy. We try to warn people of, but a lot of people are gonna get caught off guard. They're not gonna, because they don't listen. All right. Jake don't listen until things actually get real. They don't want to hear until they actually start to see it. They got to see it to believe it. Well, they're going to see it and they're going to feel it, And that's the worst way to get an understanding of it, is by seeing it and feeling it, man. And it's too late for you to come back from it. This is Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So that second woe has passed. That second World War II, All right, the Second World War has passed. You know, now I believe back in 1945. Actually, we can look that up just to be sure. Good. Two. Yep, 1945. And September 2nd, 1945 was when, you know, World War II ended. You know, so that's not too long ago. All right. You know, so ultimately that third war was already coming back again quickly. Now, the Third World War is coming again quickly, you know. And it's that time, man. We in that time right now. All right, let's see. How long ago was World War II? I believe, like, what, 90? How many years? Let's see, go. How many years was? Go. It's not telling me. So yeah, this is 80th year. It's been 80 years since World War II. I said 90, Slovakia. I'm just off 10. But it's been 80 years, man. You know, and you have grandparents that's still 80, that's still living. They're gonna see both World War II and World War III. All right. So we're in that time, man. You know, ultimately that draft is coming. World War III is coming. All right. Civil War is coming. All these different prophecies that the Lord, you know, prophesied in the scriptures. All these things are starting to come to pass, and it's coming quickly. All right. And we trying to tell Jake to prepare and get ready, but you know, Jake ain't gonna understand till they see it and they feel it ultimately. All right. So that's all I want to get on that. Just want to get into a short, quick lesson on that. Straight to the point. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect. No one's listening in. And I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to the Lord Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem.